Hey, it's Lauren with Onward Bound Marketing, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about 3 things specifically geared toward heavily relationship-based firms such as law and finance. First thing we're going to be talking about is why most marketing advice is usually intended for consumer and high-volume businesses, not necessarily relationship-based firms. Second is going to be 3 predictable breakdown points, I guess we could call it, that commonly show up when you use these kinds of everyday marketing tactics that we're going to be talking about. And lastly, what to do about it so you can market your work both intentionally and accurately. So diving right into things, I do think it's worth kind of dialing back a little bit and getting clear on the types of marketing that's out there, because marketing on its own is a very, very big umbrella. This is how I think about it. It's a very big umbrella with a lot of different pillars under it. And within those pillars, you've got sort of like specific bullet points of what that entails. So for example, we've got digital influencer marketing, event marketing, content marketing, affiliate marketing. A lot of these you've probably heard of. And some specific examples of these might be PR or public relations, SEO, search engine optimization, branding, social media, email marketing, ads. These are probably lots of things that you've interacted with before. And the thing with a lot of what a lot of these specific examples have in common is that they're fast. There's a whole lot of them, so the volume is crazy, and you're more likely to get more direct feedback from the people or the audience that you're posting to. But here's what we do know about businesses like yours is that you most likely thrive on trust, reputation, and the credibility that you've built in your specific industry or niche. And where this marketing mismatch can kind of happen is in 3 things that I'm going to be breaking down in this video. So first one, we're going to be diving into this need for visibility and virality. Now, when I'm talking about this, I'm specifically dialing in on like social media virality, right? Like I want to go viral on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, or wherever your primary audience is. Lots of firms, lots of agencies, lots of businesses think, oh, the more views I get, the more sales I'm going to get. That's not necessarily true. The way that I frame it in my mind is it's more of a correlation thing, not necessarily a causation. I can't tell you how many different videos or posts that I've seen that have millions of hits, but I don't really do anything afterwards because A, I'm maybe not interested because the reach is so broad. And secondly, the thing that people don't always think about is what do you want them to do after they see it? You've had this viral moment, you've had your what is now 15 seconds of fame. What is it that you want people to do with this information? What's the next step? Visibility gets your foot in the door, but it doesn't necessarily get you inside, right? That's where a lot more of that trust building is going to come into play. And that can be hard. That's something that takes time. And a lot of people don't really want to sit around and build relationships with their audience. They want the immediate hits. They want the immediate sales. They want the immediate leads. So I'm not saying that virality or going visible or, running ads to get, hundreds of hits on your post or something. I'm not saying that that can't be valuable, but I'm saying that you have to be really intentional, and I would even probably say calculated about how you do it, because like I said, I believe it's a correlation, not a causation. Because people will see it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to buy it. Diving into the second breakdown point, I guess is what I'm calling it, is education being a relatively underutilized or underrated tool depending on the kind of industry that you're in. Now, I'm someone who's relatively young. I'm 29 at the recording of this video, and a lot of the stuff that I watch and enjoy watching is actually educational. I've seen a lot of the content be geared toward young adults and young professionals such as myself, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a market for someone like you out there to educate other people on their options. The thing is, people are tired, insanely distrustful. It's just a very sensitive kind of atmosphere ecosystem that we're operating in right now. And on top of that, people want fast answers. Education, snipping and clipping videos as an example, going on podcasts, making a LinkedIn post, sending something off in your newsletter, something that's just a little nugget of wisdom, something that people can kind of tuck in their back pocket. That can be a really powerful tool, and it helps build that trustability because you're giving them those answers. We're not necessarily trying to do those things. Those can be nice components to plug into your marketing strategy, but we're not marketing to sell necessarily, and we're also not marketing to just entertain. Going from, oh, I saw you on YouTube and I want to buy something from you or book a call or inquire about your services, that's kind of a tall order. Or they read Google reviews, or they did some homework somewhere that included some degree of vetting. Those tend to be the faster sales versus the entertaining aspect. It's more superficial. I mean, we're not necessarily here to make people feel good. We want to make them feel good about the decision that they're making and the content that they're consuming, but it just feels a little empty if it's just for the fun of posting or posting just to post. We definitely don't want that. Anything that we do, we want it to be intentional, accurate, because there's a lot that's at stake here. We've got your credibility, your reputation, and the trust that you've built up over a very long period of time, most likely. Best example of using education as a marketing tool comes from one of my biggest clients. He's in the financial sector, 44 years, sold his business in 2023 as a private portfolio manager. He managed over 110 million in assets, wrote a book about it, and that book actually did pretty well. And this was the guy who was not afraid to market himself, which is always kind of a bonus when it comes to marketing agents like myself. And by the time he came to me, about a year or so after self-publishing his book, he had already independently sold about 2,000 or 3,000 copies, which already is pretty impressive. Generally, the average book that is self-published doesn't sell any more than maybe like a few hundred copies. So by the time he came to me and he was like, hey, I've got this book, I want your support with marketing it, there were a few different things that I was thinking of. A, this guy has a lot of credibility. He spent a very long amount of time in an industry doing something very well. He's got a very long roster of happy clients. He's got a wide and engaged network. He wrote a book that people like, because the big fear around that is that, oh, I've worked for 65 years to build up this nest egg. I don't want it to run out. I want to keep living my lifestyle that I had while I was working, and I want to generate some kind of income from my investments. That's kind of the bread and butter of what Steve does. So we launched this community in December of 2024, and within a year, we've got 600 members with over $14,000 in monthly recurring revenue. So if we calculate all that up over the last 12 months, that's easily a six-figure community. So now we've got this really clean, relatively automated pipeline peppered in with other marketing efforts that is basically where people buy the book for $20, they read it, they like it. There's a call to action at the end that's like, hey, if you enjoyed this book, come check us out at this community. They go to that community link, they try it out, and most of the time they like it. Using education as a tool, we turned a $20 book into a six-figure community. And the third breakdown point is launching without consideration. If there's something new, if you're wanting to shake things up, introduce a new offer, if there's an idea that you've been sitting on for a while, a large part of this is going to be understanding your clientele and or network, because we don't want to scare them off. We want to make sure that we're protecting our reputational and social capital, but maybe at the same time, we want to open up other revenue channels. Maybe we want to diversify our income streams a little bit more. And this will heavily depend on the specific niche or industry that you're in, but typically this will usually be a bit more of a gradual kind of rollout, right? Because we want to reduce that reputational risk. And in a second here, I'm going to be going into more answers around what that looks like. But generally, that's kind of a breakdown of those three challenges, I suppose, that folks typically face when they're in heavily regulated and or relationship-based firms or agencies or small businesses. So going back to what I said a few minutes ago, a marketer's job is to protect trust on two sides: the client side, the receiving side, and also your side, the business side, my client, while getting the job done, which is spreading a message and promoting something effectively, intentionally, and accurate in a way that serves everyone's greatest interests. Really, what the core distinction is between marketing that works and marketing that doesn't work is that for relationship-heavy firms such as yourself, success is having quality interactions, even if there aren't quite as many of them. There's that mass media kind of marketing that's for like everyday consumers. It's sort of like spray and pray is what they call it. But for relationship or for firms such as yourself, it's more about quality than it is quantity. It's more about having $1 rather than 100 pennies. And while on paper, that doesn't necessarily look good. You know, oh, I only got 50 views on a video. Oh, I only got 200 impressions on a LinkedIn post. How many conversations did that spark? Did you have 2 people reach out to you out of those 50 views on your YouTube video to learn more about what you do? Did 5 of them turn into newsletter subscribers? Did 10 out of the 200 from your LinkedIn post reach out with a request to connect? Any conversion is a good conversion, even if it isn't a direct sale conversation. It's not the superficial success that we're going for here, like likes and views. Those things look good. Those are called vanity metrics, where it looks good, it makes you feel good about what you're doing, but it doesn't necessarily tell us anything. If you reach 50 people and 10 of them convert, that's a 20% conversion rate. That's 20% of people that are engaged with your stuff versus a blog post or something that's got 1 million hits. Maybe 10 of them subscribe to the newsletter. That's a much, much lower conversion rate or engagement rate on a much wider scale compared to a much smaller scale where they're a lot more engaged. It's just a difference in concentration, whereas the first group, where it's smaller scale, it's heavily concentrated because you've got a lot of people engaging, versus the larger scale, it's a lot more diluted because yeah, you have a lot of hits, but how many conversations or how many conversions are you getting from that type of interaction? So with all of that framing, let's talk about what actually works. So there's 3 things here that I'm really wanting to touch on. The first is going private before public. This is what's going to offer more of that shield of protection when it comes to introducing or launching something new. You want your ideas to be validated by those who matter most because, again, we're going for quality, not necessarily quantity. So this is going to look like accessing your network of colleagues, of clients, referral partners, anyone that kind of fits the bill. Good example of this comes from someone I'm continuing to help develop this for them, but they are a very, very specific legal firm that does a lot of middleman work between businesses. And they thought, hey, we've had this idea for a long time where we have this basically toolkit or, bundle of resources that we want to be able to give to in-house legal teams within our network so that if they're not able to work with us directly for one reason or another, they at least have all the resources available for them with consultative credits that they can use to pick our brain about specific problems or questions or issues that they have. So what we did is over the period of a month or so, we basically mapped out what we would want that really soft introductory, interest gauging, effort to look like. They had a very engaged newsletter. They were doing a lot of workshops. And so we thought, okay, let's even see if the folks in their network would even want something like this, if there's even any kind of interest. And it was a very specific way that we framed this because they wanted to essentially do a pre-order campaign to gauge interest and also collect capital so that once they have a pool of money from interested folks, they could use that cash to build out this toolkit or this resource without dipping into their funds. So we rolled out basically a newsletter campaign that started with one email saying, hey, we're looking at launching this thing. We have this resource. Here's everything that's included. Here's the price point. Are you interested in something like this? This is primarily geared toward or intended for XYZ type of firm, type of person. Within a month, they had about 25 submissions that showed an interest in this kind of resource. Now, bear in mind, that doesn't sound like a lot out of a pool of maybe 300 or 400 folks. This was during the holiday season. This is where folks check out. They're not interested. Everyone's tired. They want to go on break. We're all tired. But their definition of success for this particular resource is getting about $40,000 in pre-order capital. For this first iteration of this toolkit, if I'm just doing some quick math here, they priced it at roughly $8,000 US. So they would only need 5 people out of that 300 or 400 in their network in their newsletters to convert. We've got 25 interested forms. If 5 of that 25 convert, that's all that matters. And that kind of goes back to my argument of the concentration, the concentrated pool of people that you're working with. Sometimes it's not necessarily about going wider, but going deeper. And so if you already have this collection of first, second, maybe even third tier connections that you feel relatively okay approaching with this idea, that's a good example of going private before public because we want to be delicate about how we're approaching this. We don't want to scare people off. We want to make sure that what we're talking about and what we're playing around with actually makes sense for them and is something that people want. Branching off of this is kind of like item number 2. It's sequence and then scale. So once we have a good idea of the level of interest that comes from your network, we want to do something with that curiosity, with that interest. And that usually comes into some kind of invitation to engage or to convert or to subscribe to something. You're putting a direction to that curiosity, like, hey, I'm raising my hand, I'm interested. I don't know if I want to convert yet, but I'm here to say that I would be interested in at least learning more. Having a plan of action for how you would want to capitalize on that curiosity in a way that is not pushy, that is not salesy, but is just a conversation can be really, really valuable. So number 1 and number 2 kind of go hand in hand. And finally, this one's not a huge surprise, but people are busy. People often don't care, and you want to use authentic positioning and framing and language to kind of lock it in and not make it feel like such a hard, heavy push. So what would this whole thing look like in action? introducing new services without a big flashy announcement or campaign or rollout of some kind. Remember, we're going private, not public first. This is also a really great opportunity to boost the relationships, the individuals that you have in your network, and nurturing some of those relationships to continue turning the referrals that you're getting into new opportunities. So it's kind of like a two-in-one, where it's like, hey, I'm interested in launching this thing. I want to get your thoughts on it. Is that something that you'd be interested in? But also, how are things going on your end? Is there anything that I can do to support you? It's kind of like an invitation to have a conversation. So overall, this idea of more intentional reputational marketing, is I guess what I'm going to call it, is really valuable for firms that value long-term relationships, that want to grow through their connections, and that want meaningful change that will help move the needle toward their internal goals and maybe their revenue benchmarks. On the other side, it's less effective for those who focus more on volume, where you play more of the volume game and that works for you. Don't mess up what's already working. Rule number 1 of marketing: if it works, double down on it. It's less effective for those who are wanting to do more of that kind of marketing experimentation, and for those that are primarily concerned with public-facing funnels, where you are doing more of that mass media marketing, kind of spraying and praying and giving folks a sequence of actions that they can take once they come across your content. That's really kind of a different sort of strategy. But if this kind of fits the bill, if you're someone who's heavily relationship based, if you've got a lot of social capital, if you've got a reputation that you've spent a really long time building and it's pristine and people like you and they trust you, you don't want to mess with that. Operating from this reframe of protecting both sides and prioritizing quality conversations over quantitative conversions, that's going to make all the difference. And I really think that's kind of where the secret lies in the sauce. So that's really all I got. I hope you got something out of this. If you're interested in this kind of content and you want to learn more, please feel free to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out, and it also gives me a really good idea of what resonates with folks. Feel free to check out some of the resources and extra information we have in the description box if you're interested. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video, and take care until then. Bye.